I moved to the edge of Whispering Pines for one reason: peace. After years of running into burning buildings and my wife Clara chasing down armed fugitives as a sheriff's deputy, we were overdue for stillness, the kind of quiet only a ranch on the outskirts of civilization could provide. We bought a property just outside the HOA boundaries, legally exempt, deliberately distant, and gated with steel like Fort Knox. Perfect. Unfortunately, Karen Hensley, the self-declared queen of Whispering Pines HOA, never got the memo. From the moment we unloaded the moving truck, she made her presence known. Blonde bob, pastel tracksuit, clipboard glued to one hand and a Bluetooth headset chirping HOA bylaws in the other. Her arrival was always announced by the soft screech of her electric golf cart tires on gravel and a war-ready scowl. Need to repaint that fence. We don't allow charcoal gray here, she declared the first morning. We're not in the HOA, I replied, keeping my tone measured. Her eyes scanned the property like a surveillance drone. Yet we've been petitioning annexation for 2 years. Your lot was carved out before current zoning. It'll happen soon. Might as well get ahead of it. That was her thing: assert control early, confuse people with bureaucracy, and bully until submission. Clara, standing on the porch with her sheriff's badge still clipped to her belt, simply sipped her coffee and offered a dry smile. Karen didn't flinch. Days passed, then weeks. Every other morning she returned with a new complaint. Our gate was not HOA compliant. Our mailbox was too tall. Even our dog's barking was distracting to community tranquility. Each time, I reminded her we were on private non-HOA land. Each time she responded with a smirk like she was just waiting for us to catch up. But what really set everything in motion came on a Tuesday morning. The dogs Zeus and Hera, two alert, well-trained Belgian Malinois, wild outside. I glanced at the security monitor and paused. Karen stood at the gate, not observing, not writing notes, trying to unlock it. She held up a dull brass key, jammed it into the padlock and twisted hard. The lock didn't budge. She twisted again, more forcefully. Then she stepped back, hands on her hips, confused and increasingly furious. I activated the speaker system from my office upstairs. Karen, step away from the gate. She jumped. Excuse me, you're trespassing. This is an HOA access check. I have the master key for all residential lots. That key doesn't work here because you don't have authority here. Back away. She stared directly into the camera mounted on the gate. Her voice turned cold. You can't block me from an official inspection. Yes, I can, and I am. She pulled out her phone. Then I'm calling 911. Let the police sort it out. Great, I said, smiling. Let me know how they like your story. She didn't catch the sarcasm. 10 minutes later I heard sirens. Clara, already suited up in uniform for her shift, radio crackling on her shoulder, looked out the window. Looks like I'm handling my first call of the day right here at home. We stepped outside together. Karen was pacing in front of the gate, waving her arms like she'd just uncovered a conspiracy. Her voice rose when she saw Clara. Finally, law enforcement. Officer, this man is obstructing community oversight and illegally detaining shared HOA land. Clara adjusted her belt. You called 911 because your fake master key didn't work. Karen blinked. What? I'm Sheriff Clara Holt, she said, showing her badge. You're attempting unlawful entry onto private land, and you just filed a false emergency report. Karen's confidence wavered for the first time. But, I thought law enforcement was on our side. Law enforcement is on the side of the law, ma'am. Karen's mouth opened, then closed. No words came out. As Clara began reading her the state statutes on trespass and false reporting, Karen's face slowly turned the color of a pastel tracksuit, faded pink, and humiliated by the time she stomped back to a golf cart. The message was clear. She thought she could unlock our gate with power, with pressure, with bluff. She didn't realize the gate was guarded by something much stronger: law, truth, and a sheriff with no patience for HOA nonsense. And that was only the beginning. Karen didn't learn. The morning after Clara shut down her master key stunt, we figured she'd back off, maybe lick her wounds in private. But not Karen. She doubled down. That afternoon we found a certified letter taped to our mailbox. Notice of probationary non-compliance. You are hereby notified of your continued deviation from Whispering Pines Community Aesthetic Code. Section 3.4.A Gate Uniformity. Unless corrected within 7 days, your property may be subject to HOA annexation review under conditional jurisdictional policy. Clara read it twice, then chuckled. She made up half these words. She's bluffing, I said. She's just trying to wear us down. But Karen wasn't working alone anymore. Over the next week, HOA board members began circling our fence line like vultures, clipboards in hand, camera phones snapping pictures of our barn, our firewood pile even, Zeus and Hera. We confronted them each time. They never stepped onto the property, but they didn't need to. Their message was clear. You're next. One evening Clara came home visibly agitated. She submitted an incident report to my department. My stomach tightened. About what? About me. Conflict of interest. She claims I used my badge to intimidate her as a civilian, that I weaponized law enforcement to silence the She called 911. he responded. She twisted it. Says I should have recused myself. She wants an internal review. Clara was calm, but I knew her well enough to see it, a slow-burning rage beneath the professionalism. Karen wasn't just annoying anymore. She was dangerous, so we documented everything, every letter, every photo, every drive-by from her golf cart goons. I installed 3 more cameras and upgraded our gate with license plate recognition. Clara filed her response to the complaint with legal precision and turned it into the sheriff's ethics board. Her self-transparency was her weapon. Then came the drone. It buzzed over our back pasture at dusk, barely audible over the chirping cicadas. It hovered low, dipping near the chicken coop, then swinging wide to the barn. I pulled out my phone. Live footage showed Karen's HOA logo stick it right onto the drone's plastic belly. She wasn't even being subtle anymore. The next day, a letter arrived from an HOA attorney, greater than due to increasing community concern and evidence of non-compliance. We intend to schedule a formal inspection of your property, should you fail to cooperate. Whispering Pines HOA reserves the right to take legal action to secure compliance and protect neighborhood value. Clara stared at it for a long time. They're trying to build a legal case. They're baiting us into confrontation so they can escalate. What do we do? She looked at me, steady as ever. We don't take the bait. We hit first within the law. That night, Clara stayed up until midnight, compiling every shred of documentation. Drone footage, harassment reports, security logs, even HOA emails sent to nearby residents encouraging them to pressure the Holt property into full annexation. She called a state investigator she trusted and filed a formal complaint with the county district attorney's office. The next day, we struck back. She drove to town in full uniform and walked straight into a local news station. 10 minutes later, she sat down for an on-camera interview. Whispering Pines HOA has no jurisdiction over our home, and yet for months, they've harassed us, fabricated violations, and attempted to force annexation through fear and misinformation. As sheriff, I stand by the law. As a homeowner, I stand against this abuse of power. The clip aired that evening. Karen didn't take it well. Her response was swifted another certified letter. This one marked final warning. It accused us of slander, libel, and obstruction of community governance. She demanded we attend a mandatory HOA hearing. The kicker: it was scheduled to take place inside our front gate. That's when I realized Karen didn't just want power. She wanted control. She wanted to crack open our gate, both literally and symbolically, and plant her little HOA flag where it had no right to fly. But what she didn't know was that Clara wasn't just fighting for us anymore. She was preparing to expose everything, and Karen's little empire was about to crumble. Karen's HOA hearing never happened. Not because we declined, because she forced it without permission. It started on a Wednesday afternoon. Clara was attending a sheriff's conference out of county, and I was finishing up fence repairs. Near the barn, Hera, our female Malinois, barked twice, a warning bark, not a frenzy. Something wasn't right. I checked the gate feed on my phone, static, a second camera dead. I dropped my tools and sprinted toward the house. When I reached the driveway, my gut dropped. The gate was wide open, the lock cut clean through. Bolt, snipped, hanging loose like a pulled tooth. A trail of golf cart tires had carved neat little arcs in our gravel path, leading straight up to the house. Karen had finally crossed the line. I stormed toward the porch, adrenaline racing. The dogs weren't in sight, only a thin smear of muddy paw prints. Leading back toward the barn, my heart pounded. Had they taken Zeus and Hera? Had they? A groan snapped me back. Behind the garage, I found HOA board member Terry Mathis crumpled beside a toppled wheelbarrow, his khakis stained and his face scratched. He was holding his arm and cursing under his breath. "You shouldn't have tried to corner the dogs," I said flatly. Towering over him, "They bit me," he shouted. "You're attack animals. They're a threat to community safety. They're trained to defend private property." From the corner of my eye, I saw Karen huddled near the shed, phone clutched like a lifeline, breath rapid. The drone was back to buzzing overhead like a smug little spy. "Get off my land," I growled. Karen lifted her chin. "This is now HOA domain. We've voted to proceed with provisional annexation enforcement." I almost laughed. "You broke into private property. You harassed our animals. You damaged my gate, tampered with my cameras, and scared the hell out of my dogs. That's not enforcement, it's a crime scene." Her voice trembled, but she pushed through. "We followed procedure." "No, Karen, you followed your delusions." Clara arrived 20 minutes later. She didn't say a word at first, just stepped out of her cruiser, assessed the broken lock, the injured man, the drone, and her pale-faced husband standing amid it all. Then, in one smooth motion, she pulled out her department-issued bodycam and clipped it to her chest. "Everyone on this property," she said, voice calm but hard as steel, "is now part of an official criminal investigation." Karen started to protest, but Clara raised her palm. "Anything you say from this moment forward can and will be used in a court of law. I recommend silence unless you're accompanied by counsel." It was over. Terry was loaded into an ambulance. Karen refused to speak without an attorney. The drone pilot, a smug teenager with a Whispering Pines hoodie, was issued a citation and forced to land the drone on the spot, but Clara wasn't done that night. She compiled everything: video, audio, written statements, HOA letters, witness reports. She sent the package directly to the state attorney's office and CC'd every local media outlet in the county. By morning, we were front-page news. Greater than sheriff's family targeted in HOA power play gone rogue. Residents from inside Whispering Pines began calling Clara anonymously. Some were afraid. Others were furious. All had stories: quiet coercions, surprise inspections, sudden fines for made-up infractions. It wasn't just us. Karen had been running a petty kingdom behind those ornamental picket fences. No one had dared speak up. Until now. That weekend, Clara hosted a town hall at the community center, not as sheriff, as a homeowner. She stood at the podium in jeans and a flannel shirt, her badge nowhere in sight. Her words were quiet, but every syllable landed like a hammer. "This isn't about a gate," she said. "This is about abuse, about power without accountability, about someone who believed she could create laws by printing them on HOA letterhead." The room was silent. Even Karen, seated stiffly in the back, didn't interrupt. Then someone stood up. Mr. Langley, Vietnam vet, longtime resident. He raised his hand. "I move we vote to dissolve the current HOA board." Cheers erupted. Karen turned pale. A reckoning had begun and she couldn't stop it, but the final blow hadn't landed yet. That would come when the law finished what Karen started. The state investigation moved faster than anyone expected. Within 10 days, Karen Hensley was served with a cease and desist order. Her fake annexation documents, fabricated HOA regulations, and unauthorized surveillance had triggered multiple state code violations. But that wasn't the headline. It was the criminal charges: trespassing, tampering with private property, filing a false police report, coordinating unlawful surveillance. The same gate she tried to open with her master key had become the exhibit that sealed her fate. When the deputies arrived to formally charge her, she was gardening. Clara wasn't part of the arrest by design. But the moment Karen saw the badge, she asked one question, bitter to the core: is she behind this? The arresting deputy simply said, "No, you are." Karen was processed like anyone else. Mugshot, fingerprints, released pending court date. But the court of public opinion had already made up its mind at the next HOA meeting. Whispering Pines residents voted unanimously to strip her of her presidency. A few brave souls stepped up, vowing to restore transparency and sanity. One even proposed abolishing the HOA altogether and replacing it with a voluntary neighborhood council. Karen stormed out halfway through. She hadn't just lost her title, she lost the illusion of control. And we finally had our peace. But Clara didn't stop there. She worked with the new board to audit Karen's tenure. What they found was staggering: unauthorized use of HOA funds, inflated contractor invoices, private purchases listed as beautification expenses, and even an illegal emergency annexation clause she'd inserted into old meeting notes by hand. Clara turned the findings over to the county prosecutor. Civil litigation followed. Karen was forced to pay restitution. Her assets were frozen during investigation. The home she once ruled from, complete with marble fountains and private HOA only signage, was quietly listed for sale months later. She'd been dethroned, disarmed, and poetically evicted by her own paper trail. But the best moment, that came a few weeks after everything settled down. A new family moved into Karen's former home: a retired fire chief, his wife, and their 3 kids. As they pulled into the driveway with moving trucks, I walked over to welcome them. That's when I noticed something in their front window: a sign, small and wooden, hand-painted in neat red lettering: "Private property, nitrogen monoxide HOA." I couldn't stop smiling. Clara joined me at the fence that evening, a glass of tea in her hand, watching the sun dip below the horizon. "Think she'll try to come back?" I asked. "If she does," Clara said, "she need more than a master key. She need a time machine, a pardon, and a new name." We laughed. Zeus and Hera dozed under the porch. For the first time in weeks, the gates were closed, cameras rolling, and for once no one was lurking. But what lingered wasn't just relief. It was proof that power doesn't come from a title, a badge, or a brass key. It comes from standing your ground, from truth backed by courage. From saying no when others expect you to fold. Karen learned the hard way that gates don't open to intimidation. And sometimes when you try to force one open, you find the sheriff waiting on the other side.